Welcome to Athenaze Chapter 10 Beta, in which we learn more future tense forms, and also purpose constructions, and lastly, some impersonal verbs. So, let's look at how you form the future tense when your stem ends in a liquid or a nasal. So, liquids are lambda and rho, and nasals are nu and mu. So, if your stem ends in one of these, then you form the future tense by taking the present stem, adding an epsilon, adding a sigma, and then adding your endings. But then you have a sigma between two vowels, which drops away, and then you have two vowels next to each other, which results in a contraction. So for example, menno, I wait, you form the future by taking the stem men, plus the epsilon, plus the sigma, plus the endings, and then you apply your accent rules to get mennesso, and then the sigma goes away, and the epsilon omega contracts, and you get menno. So you'll see that the only difference between the present I wait and the future I will wait is accent placement and accent type. And you'll see that this same differentiation, accent placement versus accent type, applies to the first three, so all the singulars, I wait versus I will wait, you wait versus you will wait, etc. Once you get to the first plural, there's a slightly different spelling, menomen versus menumen, which is because that future tense is a contraction of menneomen. So epsilon omicron contracts to u with the circumflex. Likewise, in the second plural, meneta versus meneta, the reason the vowels are different in the future is because it's a contraction of meneta, which gives you a. But then the third plural, they wait versus they will wait, is, like all of the singulars, simply a matter of differentiation in accent placement and accent type. So next up, let's look at an irregular verb, to go. And we're going to compare it to the forms of to be since they share a lot of letters and look the same often. So emi is I am. The future is essomai. You'll notice that it's a deponent future, which uses the middle forms. If you want to review the forms of I will be, look at Chapter 10 Alpha. Our new one we're going to learn is the future of erchomai. So in present tense, erchomai, I come / go. In the future tense, you use a completely different verb, eimi, which means I will come or go. Now, unfortunately, that's also the exact same form for a present tense verb that means I come or go. So really, when you see eimi in Greek, know that in English you can translate it either into the English future or into the English present. So let's compare some forms. Emi, I am, versus eimi, I go. So first singular, I am versus I go. Second plural, you are, versus you go. These are the only two that have the exact same form. The rest of them look similar, but will have slight differences in lettering and or differences in accents. But these two are exactly the same, so you'll just have to figure out by context whether it means you are or you go. Third singular, he, she, it is, estin, versus he, she, it goes, sin. We are, esmen. We go, imen. You are, este. You go, ite. They are esin. They go, iasin. And then you'll also notice that the only difference here between the third plural they are and the third singular he, she, it goes is accent. I have an accent mistake in esmen, so it's esmen. So those are the differences in the spelling and accents for the indicative. The imperatives, come, go, and be. Plural, singular, be, isti. Singular, go, itti. Plural, be, este. Plural, go, ite. And then if you compare the infinitives, we have enai to be versus enai to go. We've seen enai before in a compound verb meaning to go back. And then if you compare the participles, being, on, usa, on, versus going, ion, iusa, ion, you'll notice that many of those forms of to go have a characteristic iota at the beginning. So keep an eye out for the iota, and it's a clue that you're in to go land rather than to be land. So now let's leave learning new forms behind and talk about how some of those future tense forms are used. So the future participle can be used in a particular clause to express purpose. So if you see in Greek the little word hos plus a Greek future participle, that is a purpose construction. Purpose constructions in English are introduced by phrases like in order to, or sometimes just to, or so that. So here's an example, and we'll do both the Greek and English. En to aste meno hostas tragodias theasomenos. So we start with our verb meno. You'll notice from the placement and type of accent that we're in future land, not present land. So I will wait in the city as a person about to watch. That is a very literal translation, but a terrible one. I'll give you better ones in a moment. As a person about to watch the tragedies. So before I give you the better English translations of how we really do a purpose clause, let's dissect the verb and the participle. So the verb tells you that the subject is singular, first person singular, and the participle must agree with the subject. So that means whatever ending the participle has, it's got to, at the very least, be nominative and singular. This particular one is masculine, which tells us the person who is speaking happens to be male. And then it's a future middle participle. The reason it's middle is simply because this verb is deponent in the future tense. So take-home lesson there is that participle must agree with the subject. So let's talk about better English translations now. So literally as one about to watch, but that's not how we do a purpose construction in English. In English, we might say, I will wait in the city in order to watch, or sometimes we just say to watch. I will wait in the city to watch the tragedies, or so that I may watch the tragedies. So all three of these are perfectly acceptable ways to do purpose constructions in English. You'll notice that middle one, to watch, is exactly the same thing as an infinitive in the English language. But notice that in Greek, you cannot express a purpose clause with the infinitive. So if you are given an English sentence, I will wait in the city to watch the tragedies, and asked to translate it into Greek, understand that to watch is a purpose construction, which is done with the infinitive in English, but cannot be done with the infinitive in Greek. So you have to recognize that to watch is a purpose construction, and then you have to pick an appropriate way to do a purpose construction in Greek. So last but not least, in this chapter, we learn about impersonal verbs. So impersonal verb means that the subject is impersonal, and I'll give you some English examples to start us off. So it rains. Impersonal subject, it. Verb, rains. Who rains? Nobody in particular. It's just it rains. Another example that's a little more complex is, it is sad that graduation is online. And the reason I give you this one is because you can think of it as it is the impersonal subject, is the verb, sad is the predicate, and then we've got this extra clause, that graduation is online. But you can also think of it as that whole clause is now the subject of the sentence. That graduation is online, subject, is, verb, sad, predicate. And now we don't need the impersonal English subject, it. The subject is that whole clause, that graduation is online. So keep that in mind when we pick apart these Greek sentences. So first example, ar exestin hemin en to aste menein. So the are at the beginning and the semicolon at the end tells us that we're in question land. So in question land, in English word order, we say is it instead of it is. Then we go to our verb allowed. Is it allowed for us? You'll notice that this particular verb in Greek, to be allowed, takes the dative. So is it allowed for us, dative, to remain in the city? You can think of it as the English subject. is allowed as either a two-part verb, or you can think of is as the verb and allowed as the predicate. And then everything else in the sentence is just more predicate, but you'll notice that we put the to remain into the infinitive, so a complementary infinitive there. So that's the English example with an impersonal subject, it. In the Greek, if you want to, you can think of menein as the subject. To remain, so to remain in the city, is allowed, question mark, for us. So let's look at another example. De hemas pro tas nuktos eke sa pareinai. So verb, it is necessary for us. Make a mental note that this particular impersonal verb in Greek takes the accusative. It is necessary for us, hemas, to be present there before nightfall. So again, in English, it is the subject, the impersonal subject of our sentence. Is necessary is our two-part verb, or you can think of is as the verb and necessary as the predicate. The rest of it is more predicate. Again, we use a complementary infinitive within it. Or if you want to, you can think of to be present as the subject of day. So to be present there before nightfall, long subject, is necessary verb for us. The end. I will see you next time.